How do you put 56 years of your life in 15 minutes? It's not easy, but it's a journey, it's a story that I narrate today with pride. It's the story that I've been blessed with to see the diversity that exists in the world, to learn from that diversity, and to believe that diversity is strength. Differences bring people closer together. Differences get people with different strengths to come together to create synergy and resonance. I always wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a teacher at the age of 3. I still remember my kindergarten teacher. I don't remember her name, but I remember her feel. I remember the clothes she wore. She wore a frock with printed flowers, and she smelled beautiful. And I was quite a scared child. I would cry a lot, and she would pick me up in her lap and make me sit there and give me beads to string, and I just liked the comfort of her lap, and I wanted to be there forever. I moved on. My dad was an armed forces officer, so I completed my schooling in 5 different schools from grade 1 to grade 12. Every 3 years, we packed our trunks and our suitcases, and we moved. And the schools that I went to central government schools where children spoke probably all the languages of India. From Hindi and English that was taught to us and Sanskrit, we heard people speaking in Marathi, Gujarati, Tamil, Malayalam, everything. And that changed some part of me. I could manage in every state with a little bit. And the minute I went to a state and spoke in that language, I was immediately accepted. I didn't think then it was a skill. I had taken it for granted because it came to me naturally because of the job my father was in. In spite of getting a seat into engineering and medicine, I decided to be a teacher because I wanted to be a teacher. And I wanted to be a school teacher. I didn't want to be a college teacher. And when I was studying there, I took biology. And one of the subjects that I really loved was ecology. And it spoke about the environment, and our existence depended on this environment. And if we didn't keep it now, we would never have it for the future. And one line struck with me. It was about equatorial rainforests. They say that the equatorial rainforests that occupy about 2 to 6% of the Earth's landmass cater to more than 50% of the species that exist on the Earth. And they are the only space that have been here for more than 60 million years. What makes the equatorial rainforest so special? Why do they survive when all the ice ages seem to destroy everybody else? Simple answers. They have plenty of sunlight. They have plenty of rain. Nurturing, nourishing factors. But they also have, because of those nourishing and nurturing factors, they have species variation. Species, more than half of the Earth species go there. So there's flora and fauna that is so different. No matter what happens, some will survive. Some will survive to take the future ahead. It made sense with biology, but it stayed as a part of me. I became a teacher, started teaching, and then had the opportunity to travel abroad to the UK. And for the first time, I'd seen diversity in religion, I had seen diversity in geography, I had seen diversity in age, I had seen diversity in languages. But I'd never seen diversity in ability. From the moment I got down at Heathrow, I saw elderly wheeling themselves on their motorable scooters. I stepped out of my aircraft and asked an elderly lady if I could help her, and she said, "No, thank you, I can manage myself." This was the first time I had seen someone who was 80 saying, "I can do my stuff on my own." I went to the grocers, I went to the market. Everywhere I saw people with disability who were extremely independent. And then I took up a job in a school. And I saw children who were absolutely normal in their physical appearance, but they had specific learning disabilities, invisible disabilities that you could not see. Back home in India, if children were not performing, we were told they're either lazy or they're not working hard enough. But for the first time, I realized that the wiring in the brain is different. And there are terms like dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, which can be helped with, scaffolded with. And they need a different way to learn. So it's not how I teach, but how they learn. And can I adapt my teaching to suit their learning? 2004, we moved back to India, and I came to Bangalore, to a wonderful organization that allowed me to change what I had learned in the UK back home to India. It was my first understanding that education didn't have to be formal all the time. There could be non-formal, flexible education that came through open schooling and open distance learning. And we went to NIOS seeking help, saying, can our children who struggle with education that is rigid, that allows me to only take certain subjects and take 5 exams to the board, can it be flexible? And the NIOS said, yes. It happens to be the world's largest open schooling system. Very robust, very strong, and accessible for children. I thought I'd become a teacher, and I would teach. And I learned no. I learned that every student in the organization that I taught became my teacher. Every student taught me that they were unique and special. And I had to teach the way they learned. In the process, I learned to teach differently. I was an auditory learner. I lost my vision. I wear contact lenses and glasses. But in grade 12, my dad took me for an eye test, and I landed up with a power of -4.5. And then I realized that because I was good at hearing, I also was a good orator. I could speak, and that was my style of teaching. But I realized that children were kinesthetic. The boys and girls who were running around in the class were running because that's the way they learned. And so I brought music and dance into the class. I brought theater. And after my classes, my colleagues would tell me, stop singing and dancing, because even after you leave, they're singing and dancing. They don't tune in into our classes. Around that time, there was a 5-year-old with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy who became my greatest guru. Duchenne's muscular dystrophy is a muscular disorder which progresses, and it's a degenerative muscular disorder, so children's muscles began to go weaker and weaker, and so was this child who came in walking into the school and then had problem with mobility. So like in any other organization, we said, all right, you cannot move, so we'll keep your class always on the ground floor. He took it for a year, and the next year he came into my office and said, sorry, I'm not staying here. All my classes have gone upstairs, the other sections, and I want to be with them. So I said, what can we do? And he said, you can get me ramps and escalators. You know, you can have elevators in the school. That summer vacation, that happened. There was a ramp that was built. It was built for one child on a wheelchair, but everybody started using it. Teachers with knee problems, people who had to take their trolley in, everybody started. And then he said, I'm not yet ready to sit on a wheelchair. Can you give me railings on the wall? We did that. And then he said, I need accessible toilets because my wheelchair can't go into one. We did that not understanding that what we were doing was changing lives for everybody. Elderly grandparents who came during events used those washrooms. People who could not walk independently used the rails. I still didn't know something was coming up. Class 10, CGPA 10. Nobody expected that he would live to give a 10th board exam, CGPA 10. Said, I want to do science. His parents said, your attendance is very weak. You probably will not be able to make it. And he asked me, do you believe in me? And I said, I do. I said, what do you want now? And he said, I want science labs that are accessible for my wheelchair. And that happened. What do you think happened with the 12th board result? Amongst the school toppers, 95.8, scholarship to a very distinguished university in Bangalore, 100%. But that journey had something more for us to learn. In grade 12, he decided to stand for the post of the head boy. Everybody, including the teachers and his parents, said, not going to be possible because you don't have the benchmarks, you don't have sports, you do not have the activities, extracurricular activities, and again you will be in and out of hospital. How are you going to be head boy? He came back and asked me the same question. His mom wheeled him into my room at 3 o'clock in the evening, and he said, ma'am, do you believe in me? And I said, yes. He said, don't change anything for me, keep the roles the same. I will not make it for sports, but I will make it to other categories. He made it to the categories, he gave the most phenomenal speech that he could, and he was enlisted to be there. The next evening, and he had 4 other contenders, 3 other contenders for the post of the head boy. The next evening, the 2 other boys came back and told me, ma'am, we want to say something. And I said, yes. They said, we don't want to be standing for the post of head boy. And I said, why? And they said, because our friend is standing. And I said, so? So they said, he is going to make history. He is going to be the first boy in India, probably the first boy in the world to be in a wheelchair and lead the school. We want to be his team. We want to make history with him. We want to redefine success. We want to redefine triumph. And that prefectorial board had a boy on the wheelchair who changed the community of schools to lead a team. But that was not enough learning for me. I thought we had done something. The morning of the oaths, the prefectorial oath was being taken, and I come to the stage and I see that overnight a ramp has been erected to the stage. The boy was wheeled in with the support of his friends and his parents, and that was one aha moment. And just when I thought that all aha moments are done, and I administered the oaths, the students kneeled down on their knees at par with the wheelchair to take their oath at the level of their friend. Empathy was not taught. It was experienced. It was shared. It became us. It became a culture for us learned from our children. There was no stopping us thereafter. And words like DEIB became mantra for us. Diversity, a space, a learning space that offered diverse student needs, catered to diverse students' needs, that provided equitable opportunities for all. And I'm stressing on the word all, that every child learns differently, and how do we give those opportunities? Inclusive in every aspect. Whether it's your language, whether it's your region you come from, whether it's your ability, whether it's your gender, your socio-economic background. We said we are going to embrace everybody. We're just going to open our doors to anyone who wants to come and learn with us. What did it do? What did this do for us? It instilled in us a sense of belonging, that this is our place. And year after year after year, stories have redefined triumph for us. Because everybody, it was no more led by a principal. It was every student, every teacher who started looking at inclusion in a different lens, with a different lens. And magic happened. Magic happened. We had a blind music teacher who was multiply disabled take the school's music to a different level. When he sang, there was pin drop silence. No student bunked his class. The head boy instituted a position in his prefectorial board to carry on, called the space, the president of diversity and inclusion. It was taken up by a girl who was visually impaired but was an NCC cadet. She could shoot. She was a star NCC cadet. When no one believed that she could be in NCC, she redefined triumph. The next year, a student who did not align with the sex they were born with took a campaign saying, can girls wear trousers? Because we are more comfortable wearing trousers. That conversation led for the school's uniform to include skirts, shalwar kameez, and trousers for girls. People started coming into the organization saying, can we learn from you? Can we see what resources you have? What does it take? And the teachers said, special educators and counselors are so hard to get by, we volunteer. We will start learning. Year after year after year, teachers started enrolling in large numbers with organizations that trained people to be special educators and leaders of inclusive education. Teachers are learned people, and so they learn. But when does a community change? When the security guard who works in that organization says, I want to know what special education is because I am the face of the school. When a parent walks in with a special child, I want to be the welcoming adult whom the parent can entrust the child with and walk the child into the school. So a security guard enrolled into the program, an admin department person enrolled into a program, parents and grandparents enrolled into the program. Doors started opening from children with physical disabilities that are visible to invisible disabilities started enrolling into the school. People moved continents and countries to come to a place where their child would be accepted and valued. Stories built on stories, and the community started coming in. A very famous organization that works with blindness started testing their prototypes on our children with visual impairment. Students of ours who had that scaffolding went to top the school's board examinations, being the top 100. Again, they had been sent out of previous schools. They had no idea what they would do in their lives, but they found meaning. Universities started coming and saying, can we research on your campus? Can we see what you are doing and how you are doing? And researchers and PhD students walked in. We had reached a certain level with academic inclusion. We were there. The board gave the necessary exemptions and things were happening. The youngest child who was scribing was in 3rd standard. So you started building friendships that my friend cannot write, and I will scribe for them from grade 4 to grade 12. It started building communities. And we realized that inclusion was not only for the people who are differently abled, it was for everybody. We changed our vision and mission statement and started saying, what does inclusion mean to us? It meant all. It meant inclusion is strengths-based. It doesn't look at who is able and who is not able. It looks at what strengths that people have. It started looking at teamwork. How do we come together as a team with different strengths and create resonance? How do we bring the marginalized to the mainstream? How do we begin to listen to voices? That changed the way we looked. In 2014, I had the opportunity to engage in a Fulbright program, and I decided to study specific learning disabilities in the country that is most inclusive. 2 experiences there stayed with me. One, I went to a university called Gallaudet, which is the University for the Deaf. I was the only person who was speaking. The hearing also there used sign language. Because I didn't know what they were doing, I was given an interpreter. And I asked the young people at the university, life must be so difficult for you. How do you manage in a world that is so audio? And they said, we don't think of ourselves as disabled. It's in your mind. We think of ourselves as a linguistic minority. We speak a language that you do not understand. So why don't you learn American Sign Language? It left such a profound impact on me that I came back and started sign language in the organization that I work. Another thing that struck me was my professor saying that all of us are disabled in some time in our life. When you're an infant, you need people around to take care of you. When you're old, you again need people to take care of you. So life is not about independence, it is about interdependence. And that is the mantra of inclusion, that we need one another. We need care for one another. We need love for one another. We need respect for one another. And when you have all of that, the magic concoction of all of this is a beautiful word called empathy. The definition is very straightforward. It says stepping into someone's shoes. But stepping into someone's shoes is not easy because you can still see. So you have no idea what is happening with a visually impaired person. Because you can hear, you have no idea. Because you are neurotypically normal, you do not see neurotypical diversity. You do not see why my friend struggles with maths. But if I could see how I could help that student, I've made the difference. Students that I worked with started supporting one another. They became peer educators. They became peer counselors. They became peer voices. They became friends for life. Would it stop here for them? No. Those who learned sign language would go on to be better doctors because they would have more clientele. They would have the deaf who wanted to build a house if you were an engineer. You could be a psychologist and you could counsel someone who has hearing impairment. If you learned Braille and if you were using software that helps the blind navigate, you're going to have more connects. You're going to be working on many more projects than people could. Every story, every child that I've worked with in 35 years of my teaching career is triumph redefined. Every child has been a success story. And I think when everyone is a success. No matter, it's not in the eyes of those who see, but it's an individual success. And when that becomes a collective, as is in my organization, we believe we are there. We are there because Triumph Redefined is DEIBC. We've created a community that is diverse, equitable, inclusive, has a great sense of belonging, and we've created a community because there's a very famous adage, and I'm going to change that. It's a proverb. It says, it takes a village to raise a child. For us, it's a community that raises a child. Thank you so much.